the health class you never had. Today we're talking about Black health is Black history. We have with us today Dr. Yu, our herbalist, drum specialist, all around great guy. Also with
Thank you.
us, we have Master Shep, our Kemetic metaphysical warrior priest.
At your service.
Thank you. So, what we want to put a disclaimer out there that we are indigenous practitioners, not medical doctors. What we do is take our experiences and things that we have learned along the way and share them with you so that you can use this information to make better health decisions for yourself because Black health is also Black wealth. We're going to have opening up with us today, Master Shep.
Right on, right on. Give thanks, Sister Precious. And greetings and salutations to all. And for those who know my person as a metaphysician, my person's presentation will be metaphysical in nature. And with that, I'm just going to share a little bit on how our ancient awareness of self may be looked at as a possible solution here in modern times to any of the common health challenges that we may be facing. So, what was our awareness of self in ancient days? Well, most of us are familiar with the pyramids. And although there are pyramids on pretty much every continent here on Earth, as well as pyramids on the moon, they discovered there's pyramids on Mars as well. For the most part, when we hear the term the pyramids, it's in reference to the 3 pyramids at Giza in Egypt, near the Sphinx. And while most of us may be aware of, the presence of the pyramids, most of us may not be aware of the writing on the wall. Yes, pun intended, talking about the actual literal handwriting on the wall, which is commonly called hieroglyphs or hieroglyphics, right? And so what is the gist of these writings on the wall? And generally speaking, a lot of our sacred texts also have the same gist, whether it be the Emerald Tablets, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Pert Imhotep, which is also called the Book of Coming Forth by Day, what some call the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and even the Christian Bible. And the basic just concept of what is said in these writings is that we are gods. Yes, we are gods. So this type of knowledge of self, right, as we had in the past, we was kind of sure that we are gods. We are gods. We are gods. How could that prove to be a possible solution to some, if not all, of our health challenges today? And yes, my person did mention all health challenges because there is a theory, or the concept is, in God, there is no sickness or disease. So if we are gods, then, the possibility for no sickness or disease to be there if we see ourselves as a god. Again, so what does that look like in today's time? It's a concept again we've heard plenty of times. Know thyself. Know thyself. Ye are gods. We are gods. Children of gods. So again, how does that apply to health in modern times? Well, one of the things we'll look at is the concept of our bodies being temples, as in the house where God lives. And if we use the analogy of our own houses or places that we dwell, then there are 2 things that may be Give thanks for the note. That there are 2 things that may be in commonality. And one is cleanliness, and that is in the constant removal of debris, um, trash, pollutants, junk, getting rid of things that are no longer useful and or beneficial for us. And the other commonality maybe is looking at our homes as temples, or bodies as temples and our temples as homes, is protection. Protection from unwanted or uninvited guests. And on a more practical level, that may be looked at as being mindful of what we eat. And also being mindful of what we mentally and emotionally hold on to, as well as being mindful of the environment that we find ourselves in, because all of these things have a direct effect on this physical body or temple or house of God, if you will. And also, on a more, we have a practice or lifestyle of self-reflecting every night. And as most of us are familiar with the term of ma'at, or declarations of ma'at, or laws of ma'at, which is similar to the Ten Commandments, which is found in the Christian Bible. And the two main differences being that one, with the laws of ma'at, they are more in number, more than just a 10. And also, another difference is that the laws of ma'at are stated as in I have not, rather than do not. And each night we would honestly recite the declarations or laws of ma'at, honestly, earnestly, as either I have or I have not, to the particular declaration or law in question. Now, a more practical use of that lifestyle practice in modern times would be simply self-reflecting. Yep, self-reflecting on how well your person adhered to the laws for itself for that day, particularly on what it ate and what it noticed that it may be holding on to mentally, emotionally, that are not serving, and also the types of environments that it was in through the day. So again, this is a way that we can use this ancient awareness of self-reflecting meditation, looking at ourselves, is a way of healing, to self-correct auto ourselves. And there is one last thing that my person would like to mention as it pertains to our ancient awareness of self. And that is in our understanding of the laws of the universe. And basically that ties in, because that's the same year gods, or more practically, we are microcosms of the macrocosm, so to say, implying that we are made from the same stuff as the universe, which also implies that we are governed by the same laws. And now for simplicity, my person will just share on the 7 common laws or principles of the universe, which may be found directly or indirectly in all of our ancient sacred texts. And these are: 1, the law of mentalism; 2, the law of correspondence; 3, the law of vibration; 4, the law of rhythm; 5, the law of cause and effect; 6, the law of polarity; and 7, the law of gender. So now then, if our awareness of self is of that we are gods, and we are God, we are a God, and that the same laws of the universe applies to us, then again, how may we use these laws in a practical way today in modern times? Excellent question. So with an understanding and integration of these laws, we will see that they may manifest. They just may manifest in such philosophies and perspectives as one, with mentalism, everything is mind. You know, we realize that we create our reality with every thought, conscious or unconscious, good, bad, or indifferent. Two, the law of correspondence. We become to realize that our outer situations, circumstances, and experiences are a direct reflection of our inner situations, circumstances, and experiences. And if the outer is good, then the inner is good. And if it's not, then it's not. And three, with vibration, we may come to realize that life and death is in the tongue, meaning the potential to heal or kill is in the words that we say. And the first words that we say are to ourselves, with the thoughts that we're talking to ourselves, with communication. Four, as we understand the law of rhythm, we may come to realize that as life itself has an ebb and flow, we begin to find our own rhythm between passive and aggressive, between doing and not doing. And with cause and effect, we may come to realize that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, implying what we put out, we get, comes back to us. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You know, as some say, karma can be a real witch with a capital B, witch with a capital B, or it can be a beautiful blessing, two capital B's. Life is what you make it with karma. Six, polarity. With understanding of polarity, we may come to realize that everything has an opposite, including God and Yeshua, Jesus the Christ. And just like God and Yeshua, Jesus the Christ, we do not have to catch feelings because someone else preferred to think and or act opposite of our own preferences. And seven, with gender, we may come to realize that creation, whether procreation or recreating, is the result of harmonizing of the masculine and feminine principles. And that if we wish to have 100% accuracy in our own creations, then we must first harmonize our own masculine and feminine within. So again, these are just a little insight from my person's perspective on how we may use our ancient insight of self, the laws governing self, in order to realize self or actualize self. So in closing, as a Kemetic metaphysical warrior priest, boat initiate, soul healer, and chi practitioner, this is part of my person's preferred healing lifestyle, daily self-love practices. In other words, someone who sees themselves as a God, it knows that in order to manifest or actualize it, then it requires being in optimal health. So it self-reflects on itself honestly every night on what it has put in its body, what it still may be holding on to emotionally and mentally that is dead weight, what experiences, what in an environment was like, and how well it uses, manifests, integrates the 7 laws of the universe maintained. And with that, just as also a reminder, a person is available for any assistance that may be needed or desired, even if it's just supporting conversation. And with that, give thanks for allowing my person to share.
Thank you, Master Chef. Those are some great principles to take hold of. I know for myself, each day I read those my art is on my large vision board. So when I'm meditating and trying to think about my next move and what it is I want to do, I utilize the laws of my art. And also the universal laws of you think understand and what it like to life. It's a wonderful situation for greater outcomes. It also keep your mind in the positive. And some of the best effects of our health is what we think. And what we think and what we say correlates. So if you're constantly talking about your problems, you're constantly putting out there into the universe more problems. So you get more of the same. You start speaking about great things, healthier things, happier things. You bring those things to you. So it's wonderful to share with us today. Also, I want to put out there, there's a great announcement that we want to have some special taking place. So make sure you wait until you get to the end so you can get that announcement. We don't want you to miss out. Next up we have with us today, Dr. Yu. He's going to give his take on Black history, his Black health.
Peace, everyone. We apologize for any interruptions with the audio. But yes, I wanted to touch on today a little bit about this topic: Black health is Black history. And when I look at what our history, and when I say our, speaking of African Americans, when I look at what our history has been, three words come to mind: ingenuity, access, and perseverance. And those three words, if I were to choose any to summarize what our history has been here in the United States from a health standpoint, those three words I feel would be very, very appropriate. From the beginning of our arrival here, from other places on the continent of Africa or throughout even the African diaspora, we have been challenged in many different ways, from a spiritual standpoint, from a mental standpoint, from a physical standpoint, from an environmental standpoint, from the inception of the enslavement experience that our ancestors went through. And even before that, so much has transpired that we still had to face in terms of challenges. But there was so much ingenuity that was present from our ancestors, from the continent of Africa, the indigenous peoples here of America, that we were able to overcome a lot of challenges. And racism, and when I say racism, I'm referring to a system that intentionally disempowers other races based on socio-political practices of another race, aimed towards another race. And for us, we're talking about African Americans particularly, even though racism is a global system. But from the inception of that, that's been one of the biggest challenges that we face here in the United States, in terms of not only our particular care, but also our perspective on the care that we choose to implement or receive. So just to give a little bit of a pretext, if you will, it's said that the modern father of medicine is Hippocrates, a Greek physician. But Hippocrates traveled to Egypt to learn everything that he knew about medicine. The father of medicine in ancient Egyptian times is considered to be someone who was known by Imhotep. Imhotep created many of, or was credited with creating many of the systems, the first knowledge, the first written text, even that had any type of medical knowledge. This is going back to approximately 2000 BC or BCE, you know. So we're talking about 4,000-ish years ago. He created these texts. And these texts, even though they were created in ancient Egypt, you know, by this great man, they were even renamed to the names of European people who allegedly discovered these particular texts. So it just goes to show, even from that the influence of the European-based people or Caucasian people, white people, whatever name you choose, you know, has been prevalent in shaping the world view of how we view medicine, of how we view health, you know. So I want to go through a few names, a few things that have transpired through American history. And I want to start with Dr. James Mccoon Smith. He is the first African-American physician with his own medical practice. And his medical practice was started in 1837. This is back when slavery was still a thing here in the United States, the overt slavery. 1837, he was able to establish his own medical practice. How was he able to do that? Because he was denied access to any schools here in the United States, any type of medical schools. This is back when it was still illegal for Black people in the United States, in certain areas especially, to even learn to read and write. He had to travel to Scotland in order to get his education. And once he got his education and his degree, his medical degree from Scotland, he was able to travel back to the United States to open up his own practice. So again, ingenuity. You know, he opened up his own practice at the age of 24 years old. Ingenuity, the lack of access, but the perseverance allowed him to get through that lack of access and to triumph over that obstacle, big obstacle that was at that point in time. Next person I want to mention and pay homage to is one of my personal inspirations, you know, and motivations in helping our people. This is Dr. Charles Drew. I learned about his story back when I was in elementary school. And he is the father of the modern day blood bank. He is the inventor of the blood bank, or the discoverer that blood can even be, you know, plasma can be dried and reconstituted for later use, you know, to use for blood transfusions. This was a very, very big discovery and has been a life-saving discovery for many people, you know, especially who have gone through things like transplants and, you know, organ transplants, accidents and things of that nature. And even this man transitioned at the age of 46 years old, being in a car accident and being in an area where the racist police and medical system that he was exposed to denied him access to his own invention, his own discovery that could have potentially saved his life. You know, so very, very tragic loss, if you will, with Dr. Charles Drew, but such a huge, major contribution that he's made to our history, to our health overall. So many people I know who have benefited from his invention. You have Dr. Daniel Hale Williams. Dr. Daniel Hale Williams was an African American physician who performed the first open heart surgery, the first successful open heart surgery, which many people benefit from to this day as well. I actually had the honor of going to a school named after him in the Bronx, where I'm originally from. Next, we have not doctor, but George Washington Carver. Many of you may have heard of George Washington Carver for his invention skills. One of the people in the Inventors Hall of Fame. George Washington Carver was an expert agriculturalist. He actually revolutionized the way that people here in the Americas formerly did farming by realizing that crop rotation was important. Crop rotation is when you are growing one type of crop, and then instead of growing that one type of crop forever, you basically grow another type of crop to complement the soil, to help to restore the soil, so that way the soil stays active, it has the right nutrients, it's able to give to the plants the environment that it needs in order for those plants to grow, to thrive, and for all of the environment to thrive around it. Very, very important practice. He also revolutionized the uses for sweet potatoes and most famously peanuts. He discovered over 300 different uses for peanuts, including not only food-based products, but also cosmetic products, soaps, and actually medicines were formed as well from the peanut, as well as the sweet potato as well. Very, very ingenious man who actually, you know, on the subject of racism, he was very much limited, if you will, for the time frame that he came up in, and what he was able to do, what he was able to participate in, the people he was able to actually help. You know, the system of racism actually hindered him, and he was actually castrated as a black man, you know, because there was always the threat that a man of this type of ingenious nature, who is a black man, might potentially impregnate a white woman and have children that are non-white, so to speak. You know, so many different adversities were faced, but yet this man was able to contribute so much to our society today. Many of the things that he discovered, even the uses for soybeans, you know, George Washington Carver was a major influencer in that as well. We have Percy LaVon Julian, another African-American researcher who was a pioneer in the chemical synthesis of medicinal drugs from plants or from herbs. So anybody who has heard me speak about herbs before know that I always speak about how herbs were one of the first forms of medicine, and how to this day, 50%, at least 50% of pharmaceutical drugs are based on herbs. You know, and this man, African-American researcher Percy LaVon Julian, was a major influencer in the ability to be able to convert herbs into medicinal drugs. And we can't leave out our women. We have Marilyn Hughes Gaston, first African-American woman to direct the Public Health Service Bureau in the United States. You know, and in 1986, her research led to the first sickle cell screening program for newborns. So for people who have had sickle cell anemia, which is primarily an African descent type of disorder Again, the lack of access to help for something like sickle cell, which primarily affects an African American population and African population, wasn't really big on the totem pole. So it took one of us, one of our own people to develop a program to even screen to say, hey, this might be a particular concern. So this is the importance of African Americans really being into health, because if we don't look out for ourselves from a historical standpoint, it's been shown, that we can't expect others to look out for us. And we also want to pay homage to Dr. Patricia Bath, who actually invented the laser phacoscope, which is the device that's used to basically perform laser surgery on people who have cataracts. So many people have benefited from that. The surgery prior to the lasers being used for surgery was a lot more painful, a lot more damaging to the eyes. So this laser or LASIK surgery and all of these things like that are a direct result of her invention of the laser phacoscope in the 1980s, Dr. Patricia Bath. But we have so much, that we can touch on in terms of the challenges that we face and continue to face, in the current climate of COVID-19 being a big area of concern, and these vaccines that have come out to the forefront being a big area of concern. And many people are so in a rush to get these vaccines, and don't realize that these vaccines are actually an experiment. It's a human trial, so there's not really a lot of solid, conclusive evidence that these vaccines are effective, that these vaccines, what the long-term implications of them will be, what effects they might have on the general population. If you look at history, we've seen something very similar in the Tuskegee, what they call the Tuskegee syphilis study on a Negro male, which actually went on for 40 years, from 1932 to approximately 1972. These experiments went on Black men, African American men some were diagnosed with syphilis, some did not have syphilis, but they were actually denied treatment, under the guise, the illusion that they were being treated, but were actually being denied treatment, and many of them passed away, transitioned, due to the denial of access of proper treatment, any type of treatment for that matter. So until this was ruled unethical, and this is something that the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, actually had a hand in conducting. So when we look at today and we look at what's going on today in the modern environment, we have, again, the CDC is pushing these the vaccine trials, is pushing certain information, and many of us who are aware of the historical implications, not just with the Tuskegee experiments, but many other things throughout history. Henrietta Lacks, whose cells continue to be used to this day for cancer research, the first person who was an African American woman, but the first or Black woman, but the first person whose cells were able to reproduce at a rate that allowed people to do studies on active cells for cancer research, as opposed to experimenting on mice, or other type of laboratory animals. These are very, very significant advancements in medicine, but it came at a cost. And it came at a cost of people's lives. It came at a cost of, people's just the ethical code of how people should be respected and how people should be taken into consideration in terms of their safety, the their consent and so on and so forth. So understanding the history helps to put us into a perspective of where, we have to look at how we're dealing with the modern day. And this is not even touching on the herbal side of things, and how we've had to make do from the enslavement time frame. And we use many of our ancestors use herbal medicine, herbal remedies when they were denied access to other therapies that were popular at the time, to even now where the foremost experts in herbal medicine are considered not to be people of African descent, even though much of the information came from people of African descent. So very, very interesting history that we have, but definitely something that we should be proud of, in terms of the ingenuity and the perseverance, even through the lack of access in many cases, that we're able to still hang in there as a people. There's still many of us who are making great strides in the allopathic fields as well as the holistic fields, and helping people to this day to overcome a lot of these different adversities that we have on the health platform. So I'm going to turn it back over to Sister Precious.
Thank you, Dr. Yu. Listening to your presentation, I remember in middle school doing a report on Dr. Drew and crying when I was reading my report about the part where he wasn't given the same thing that he created to save his life. And so you lose your life to something that you have created. And what I am really grateful for spaces like the Chi is because it enables us to learn our history, one, but also learn about what we can currently do in today, in this present time, for our health. It's like a lot of us depend solely on what a doctor say. And doctors are practicing medicine, so they don't always have the absolute answer. And it's imperative that we take it upon ourselves to study, become informed, find communities like the Chi that will give us information to help us make better decisions for ourselves. Again, it's like I don't think a lot of people understand the power of self, and the power of let me inform and be informed and do for self. You don't always have to accept what is told to you. And even if it's told to you, that person could strongly believe that, but there may be somebody else with a different opinion. It's like a lot of people go for second opinions in other communities for health. And we need to practice that more ourselves, get that other opinion so that we make the best choices for self. So again, thank you, Dr. Yu, for that share.
Yes, indeed. My pleasure.
Before we tune out today, I want to give this special announcement. The Collective Health Initiative is honored to sponsor the second Gulagi Herbal Gathering. And it is taking place on Johns Island, South Carolina, virtually as well as in person. But you can go online and sign up for this. It's on March the 27th. This event is the brainchild of our own Ketnu Nefer. She is the owner of A Soulful Touch and Wellness. And I just want you to know, last year, I participated in the Gulagi conference, and the information I got from there is just empowered me to keep me moving forward. I've shared my testimony many times about making holistic choices for my health. And I am a survivor of ovarian cancer twice and breast cancer. And I'm cancer-free today. And my health I'm going into my second year of not being in a hospital because I've taken information and made better choices. Do I still see regular doctors? I do. But they are good for me to figure out what it is that I need to work on, if there's anything at all that I need to work on to keep my health in good practice. So thank you all for being with us here on the Chi. We look forward to seeing you every week. And again, we're asking those of you who have any topics that you want us to talk about, share that information with us so that we could utilize those topics and reach you directly with information that you want. Any topics that we use that you give us, we'll make sure we send you something special, nice little prize or something for your contributions to the show. Thank you for flowing with the chi.
Right on, right on.